Humanity had always looked up at the stars with a mixture of wonder and determination. For thousands of years, people had wondered what lay beyond the small, fragile planet they called home. In the beginning, it was just stories and myths. Constellations named after creatures and heroes, galaxies imagined as endless seas of light. But over time, human curiosity grew into something far greater. With each passing century, humans learned more about their solar system, sending probes to nearby planets, landing on moons, and eventually setting foot on Mars. Every success fueled the next, and what had once been a dream became a mission, to explore the stars and chart the galaxy. By the time humanity had built the Odyssey Explorer, one of the largest and most advanced exploration vessels ever constructed, humans had already mapped thousands of star systems. The ship carried hundreds of scientists, engineers and navigators, each trained to look for the unknown, to study the strange signals from deep space, and to understand the universe in ways humans never could from Earth alone. Every day the crew sent data back to human colonies, each discovery celebrated as a step forward for all of humanity. But one day, something unusual appeared on the galactic maps. The charts, usually stretching endlessly into the void, suddenly stopped. They ended at a point just beyond the outer edge of human space, as if some invisible wall had been drawn by an unseen hand. Beyond that line there was nothing, not a single star system, not even the faintest hint of light from distant civilizations. It was as though the galaxy itself refused to continue past that point. At first, the scientists aboard the Odyssey Explorer thought it was a technical error. Perhaps their instruments had failed, or the data had been corrupted during transmission. But after repeated scans, every probe sent, every telescope used, confirmed the same strange fact. The maps always ended at human space, and no matter what humans did, they could not see beyond. It was both thrilling and terrifying. Humanity had always imagined the galaxy as limitless, but suddenly the boundary felt real. The scientists were filled with questions, and their curiosity burned brighter than ever. Why did the map stop? Was it a natural phenomenon like a cosmic fog that blocked sight? Or something more deliberate? And most importantly, what lay beyond? Despite their curiosity, the crew soon discovered that this question was dangerous. Whenever they tried to bring it up with the higher authorities, military commanders, space program leaders, or diplomats, the response was always the same: silence, avoidance, or vague statements. "It is not our place to speculate," one official said, frowning when asked directly. Another simply changed the subject, speaking about routine exploration or upcoming missions. There was no record of any orders forbidding discussion, yet the reaction was unmistakable. Humanity had encountered something unusual before, but this was different. For centuries, humans had reached new frontiers with courage, confronting dangers in unknown territories. They had survived harsh planets, hostile environments, and even first contact with alien species. Yet this boundary felt untouchable. It was as if some invisible rule, older than any human memory, forbade them from asking certain questions. The scientists on the Odyssey Explorer began to talk quietly among themselves. They shared theories that ranged from plausible to fantastical. Perhaps there was a force field, created by an ancient civilization designed to protect humans from something they could not understand. Maybe the area beyond human space contained a danger so great that it had been hidden deliberately, a warning to anyone who might try to go further. Some even wondered whether humans themselves were being tested, observed by entities far beyond their comprehension. The crew noticed subtle changes in their environment too. Instruments would behave strangely near the boundary, recording energy fluctuations that did not match anything known in physics. Communications with Earth sometimes grew faint or distorted when approaching the edge of mapped space. Even the ship's navigational systems occasionally seemed to hesitate, refusing to give accurate readings near the line where the maps ended. It was as if the universe itself had a limit, and humanity was only now reaching it. Meanwhile, back on Earth and the colonies, life continued, unaware of the tension aboard the Odyssey Explorer. People celebrated new discoveries, marveled at human achievements in space, and speculated about alien life. Children imagined traveling beyond the stars, scientists dreamed of new planets to study, and politicians used space exploration as proof of human progress. Yet none of them knew the quiet truth. There was a boundary in the galaxy that even the most advanced human technology could not cross. The sense of mystery created a strange combination of excitement and fear among humans. Exploration had always been about reaching the unknown, but now the unknown was closing in as if it were alive, watching and waiting. Humans had faced many challenges before, but this was not a storm, a hostile species, or a failing star. This was something that defied explanation, something that made every human realize how small and fragile they truly were in the vastness of space. Despite the warnings, the crew's curiosity could not be contained. They started a careful investigation, studying energy readings, mapping gravitational anomalies, and observing cosmic radiation patterns near the boundary. Each experiment revealed more puzzles. Some readings suggested the presence of matter that did not conform to the laws of physics known to humanity. Other signals hinted at the possibility of intelligent interference, as though something or someone was deliberately hiding what lay beyond. Even the seasoned scientists found themselves unsettled. Human history was full of exploration stories, tales of courage and discovery, but they had never faced a limit like this. They realized that the galaxy, which had seemed so open and limitless, might contain mysteries humans were not yet ready to face. The excitement that once drove them forward was now mixed with unease. The very act of knowing there was something they could not reach felt heavier than any physical burden they had carried. Despite the growing tension, there were moments of awe and beauty. The boundary itself was breathtaking. Stars near the edge seemed brighter, colors shifting in ways the human eye had never seen. Nebulas stretched across the void like clouds painted by an unseen hand. And yet just beyond that dazzling scenery there was nothing. Complete emptiness, silent and absolute, as if a page had been torn from the cosmic storybook. The crew learned to respect that emptiness. They spoke less about crossing it, choosing instead to document everything within their reach. Each day brought new discoveries in mapped human space, planets with strange ecosystems, moons with unusual mineral compositions, and signals from distant, friendly alien civilizations. Humans continued to push forward, but always with the unspoken understanding that there was a line they could not cross, an edge to the universe that no human had ever seen. Still, in private moments, the scientists and explorers wondered, what if there were something waiting for them beyond the boundary? What if it was not hostile but simply different? And most importantly, why had humanity's maps always stopped here, while other civilizations in the galaxy seemed to know more about the universe than humans ever could? No one had answers, and perhaps that was part of the mystery itself. For the first time, humans faced a truth that was not about danger or survival, not about exploration or conquest, but about limits. There was a part of the galaxy that humanity could not reach, and no one could explain why. It was a reminder that, for all their intelligence, creativity, and courage, humans were still small, fragile, and limited in ways that even the greatest minds could not understand. The boundary at the edge of human space became more than a map anomaly. It became a symbol, a question that hovered over humanity like a distant star. What lies beyond, and why are humans the only ones barred from seeing it? The scientists knew they might never get an answer, but still they looked, studied, and dreamed. Humanity had always reached for the stars, and even in the face of the unknown, that drive did not waver. The galaxy had given humans a taste of infinity, and they were not ready to turn back. Even if the maps ended, even if there was silence beyond the edge, humans would continue to explore, to learn, and to push themselves further than ever before. The boundary was not an end, it was a challenge, a mystery, and a reminder that the universe was bigger than any human could imagine. And so, aboard the Odyssey Explorer, humanity's explorers continued their work, documenting, analyzing, and wondering. Every day brought new discoveries, and every night reminded them of the vast, mysterious space waiting just beyond reach. They did not know what lay there. They did not know why the maps ended. But they knew this. Humanity would never stop looking, never stop asking questions, and never stop dreaming of what lay beyond the final star. The mysterious edge of human space became a topic of quiet tension among the explorers and scientists. While outwardly missions continued as usual, privately the crew and many officials began to feel the weight of the unknown pressing down on them. Each report, each observation, each map sent back to human colonies carried more than just data. It carried questions that no one was allowed to answer. Even diplomats from allied civilizations seemed hesitant when asked about the boundary. Their polite smiles and vague phrases only deepened the sense that something far beyond human understanding had been discovered. On Earth, the news of the boundary was kept mostly from the public. Life went on as usual in the sprawling cities, bustling colonies, and research hubs. But among the scientific community, rumors and speculation grew. Many researchers felt a strange frustration. Humanity had always valued exploration and discovery, yet here was a limit that could not be explained, that could not be crossed, and that had no clear reason. It was as if the universe itself was telling humans to pause, to stop, and to wait. The higher authorities remained tight-lipped. Press conferences and public briefings focused on the more routine accomplishments of human space exploration. A newly discovered planet, a successful mining operation on a distant moon, or a breakthrough in faster-than-light communication technology. The mysterious edge was never mentioned. It was not just ignored. It was actively avoided, treated as though speaking about it might cause a problem. Anyone who pressed too hard for answers was politely reminded that some knowledge was not yet for humanity. Despite the silence, human curiosity could not be contained. In private, the scientists and explorers exchanged theories, some practical, some far-fetched. Perhaps the boundary marked the limit of human detection technology, a natural barrier in the cosmos that prevented any signal or observation from going further. Some believed it might be a protective measure created by ancient civilizations long gone, designed to shield humans from a danger they could not yet understand. Others whispered about the possibility that intelligence far beyond humanity's own had deliberately chosen to isolate human space, keeping humans contained for reasons no one could guess. Every day brought subtle signs that something unusual existed beyond the mapped regions. Instruments would fail inexplicably near the boundary. Readings would contradict known laws of physics, and communications would distort. On more than one occasion, ships sent to investigate strange signals found that their sensors simply stopped working, as though the universe itself refused to reveal its secrets. Each failed attempt only made the unknown feel more alive, more present, and more deliberate. The crew aboard exploration vessels began to notice that the reactions of humans in positions of authority were almost as strange as the phenomenon itself. When reports of the strange readings were submitted, commanders would nod, take notes, and thank the team for their diligence, but they never pressed for further investigation. Diplomatic communications hinted at caution, subtle warnings not to cross into areas beyond human space. In casual conversations, some older officials would lower their voices and remind junior crew members that certain questions had answers humans were not ready to hear. These warnings were never formalized, yet everyone knew their weight. In the colonies scattered across human-occupied space, scholars and researchers started forming informal groups to study what they called the boundary phenomenon. They met in quiet corners of libraries, on remote research stations, or through encrypted communications. Discussions were careful, avoiding official scrutiny, but curiosity thrived. They examined every anomaly recorded near the edge of human space, from the strange energy patterns to the distortions in gravitational fields. They compared notes with allied civilizations, though even those with longer histories of exploration admitted they had no answers. Amid the curiosity, fear quietly grew. Humans were a species that had faced challenges head-on for millennia. They had survived harsh planets, hostile environments, and conflicts with other civilizations. But this was different. This boundary felt as if it had a mind of its own. It was not a storm, not a hostile planet, and not a disease. It was a silence, a blank space in the cosmos that seemed deliberate, and in that silence humans sensed something far greater than themselves. Even routine missions became tinged with unease. As explorers approached the edge of human space, instruments often gave readings that contradicted each other. Sensors would report the presence of energy, then immediately deny it. Visual systems would detect flashes of light, then claim nothing existed. Navigational tools seemed to hesitate, as though the ship itself was unsure of the next step. Every anomaly made the boundary feel less like a simple map limitation and more like a living presence, something that resisted human curiosity and effort. The contrast between public perception and private knowledge created tension within human society. Colonists and citizens celebrated human achievements in space, without knowing that their explorers were approaching an invisible line no one had ever crossed. Scientists and explorers privately discussed the strange phenomena, often staying up late into the night, sharing theories, comparing data, and speculating about what might exist beyond the edge. Some spoke cautiously of intelligent intervention, while others hypothesized about natural cosmic forces. Regardless of the theory, the truth remained elusive, frustrating, and endlessly compelling. Humanity's own history became a source of reflection. For centuries, humans had explored new lands, crossed oceans, and charted unknown territories. They had faced disease, starvation, and hostile neighbors, yet their spirit of discovery had always endured. Now, in the vastness of space, they faced a limit unlike anything on Earth. It was a reminder of both human potential and human limitation, the ability to wonder, explore, and innovate, yet still encounter forces beyond understanding or control. Despite the tension, exploration continued. Humans could not stop looking, cannot stop trying to understand. Each new discovery within mapped human space brought excitement and progress, even as the boundary loomed just beyond their reach. Colonies developed new technologies, communication systems improved, and exploratory ships charted more planets and star systems. The edge of human space became a distant backdrop to these achievements, present but not yet fully understood. In private moments, the explorers began to feel a strange connection with the boundary. It was as if it were a question in itself, silently asking humans to reflect on their place in the universe. The scientists and crew realized that their work was not just about discovery or conquest. It was about understanding what it meant to be human in an infinite cosmos. Each day they felt the weight of curiosity, the pull of the unknown, and the responsibility of being the species at the frontier of human knowledge. Rumors began to circulate, carefully and quietly. Some said ancient civilizations had intentionally kept humans from crossing the boundary, perhaps seeing humanity as too young or unpredictable. Others imagined that the universe contained forces that could not be reckoned with, and that the boundary was a form of cosmic protection. No one could prove any of these theories, yet each idea was discussed in hushed tones among those who dared to ask the forbidden questions. Even as fear grew, hope persisted. Humans had always faced challenges with courage, ingenuity, and determination. They built machines to survive harsh planets, developed tools to analyze distant stars, and created vessels capable of traveling further than any previous generation. If there was a boundary, the human spirit refused to accept it as permanent. Curiosity and determination burned brightly in every researcher, pilot, and engineer involved in exploration. They would continue to study, map, and understand, even if the answers were hidden beyond their reach. At the same time, the mystery influenced human culture. Stories, art, and literature began to reflect the boundary, expressing both fascination and unease. People imagined the empty space beyond, the possibilities of alien intelligence, and the vast, unknowable reaches of the cosmos. Songs were written about the endless night beyond mapped space, and novels explored civilizations that might exist just out of reach. Even without answers, the boundary inspired imagination, creativity, and wonder. The tension between known space and unknown space created a new kind of human awareness. Explorers, scientists, and citizens began to see their own place in the galaxy differently. They were not alone in their curiosity, yet they were unique in encountering a limit that no one had ever crossed. Humanity's achievements became more than technical. They were symbolic. The efforts of explorers reflected human courage, perseverance, and the refusal to accept ignorance without question. As missions continued, humans maintained caution. The unknown beyond human space was not dismissed as unimportant. It was respected, studied, and acknowledged as potentially dangerous. Exploration did not cease, but every step was measured. Every observation, every data point, every anomaly was recorded, analyzed, and compared to previous findings. Humanity's approach became a balance of ambition and prudence, a careful dance with a mystery that no one fully understood. In the end, humans accepted a quiet truth. The boundary was a reminder of both their limitations and their potential. It was a challenge that could not be ignored. A quest. Humanity had begun to realize that the edge of space was more than just a boundary on a map. It was something that demanded respect, something that hinted at forces far beyond human comprehension. The scientists and explorers aboard the Odyssey Explorer had long since learned that curiosity was a double-edged sword. It drove progress, discovery, and understanding. But when it came to the unknown sector beyond human space, it also carried the risk of frustration, fear, and uncertainty. The unusual nature of the boundary became clearer during a private military briefing. High-ranking officials, scientists, and senior explorers gathered in a secure conference room, the air heavy with tension. Screens displayed maps, energy readings, and navigation charts, all showing the same mysterious edge that had baffled humans for years. The briefing was formal, but the message was unmistakable. There were rules humans were expected to follow, though none were fully explained. It was the first time the crew was told, in so many words, that human space had been designated a sort of buffer zone, not by choice but by unspoken agreement among civilizations far older and more advanced than humanity. The words themselves were careful, calculated. They implied a warning rather than a threat, a limit rather than a guideline. The exact reasons were never provided, leaving the humans with more questions than answers. The idea that humans were contained did not sit well with everyone. Scientists who had devoted their lives to exploration felt a mixture of pride and frustration. Humanity had come so far, yet here was a force that deliberately kept them from discovering what lay just beyond their reach. Diplomats, meanwhile, emphasized caution. They spoke of the consequences of violating the boundary, hinting that other civilizations would respond swiftly and without mercy. No one spoke of specific dangers, only that the unknown beyond human space was not something humans were meant to confront. Even within the military, the tension was palpable. Commanders had to balance curiosity and ambition with discipline and caution. Explorers were allowed to conduct missions near the boundary, but they were closely monitored. Every observation, every measurement, every anomaly was reported in detail. Communication protocols were strict, and deviations from approved procedures were not tolerated. It was as if humanity had been placed in a room with a locked door, told there was something incredible on the other side, and warned never to try opening it. The restriction sparked curiosity like nothing else ever had. Private discussions among scientists were intense, full of speculation and debate. Some proposed that the boundary was a natural phenomenon, a region of space where physical laws were different or distorted. Others believed it might be the result of intelligent interference, perhaps from civilizations so advanced that humans could not yet comprehend their technology. There were even theories that humanity itself had unknowingly triggered this boundary, that human expansion and innovation had reached a point where the galaxy had drawn a line to contain them. Despite the warnings, human ingenuity could not be contained. Teams began to study the anomalies in ever greater detail. Sensors and instruments were recalibrated, algorithms rewritten, and data analyzed with extreme precision. They examined patterns of energy that appeared at the edge of human space, tracking subtle fluctuations that seemed to suggest intelligence rather than randomness. They studied distortions in gravity, variations in light and electromagnetic pulses that defied conventional explanation. Every detail added to the mystery, and every discovery only deepened the desire to know what lay beyond. At the same time, humans began to notice the psychological impact of the boundary. Explorers reported strange dreams, fleeting feelings of unease, and a heightened sense of awareness when approaching the edge of mapped space. Some crew members described the sensation of being watched, not by one being but by something vast and unknown. It was not fear in the traditional sense, but an instinctual understanding that there was a force in the universe that did not belong to humans, and that humans were not meant to challenge it directly. Even outside the military and scientific communities, the boundary influenced human culture. Artists, writers, and philosophers began to explore its meaning. Paintings depicted vast empty spaces, stretching beyond the edges of known star systems. Stories imagined civilizations that humans might encounter just out of reach, and poems reflected on the tension between curiosity and caution. The boundary became more than a scientific mystery. It became a symbol of the human spirit, a challenge to imagination, and a reminder of humanity's place in the cosmos. While cultural interpretations grew, practical attempts at exploration continued. Human vessels conducted careful surveys near the edge, collecting data on every possible anomaly. Ships encountered unpredictable phenomena, sudden bursts of energy, shifts in gravitational fields, and interference with navigational instruments. Every encounter reinforced the idea that the boundary was more than an arbitrary line. It was a region where normal rules of space no longer applied, a place that resisted human intrusion. Some scientists began to focus on the patterns of anomalies themselves, searching for hidden meaning. They hypothesized that the fluctuations in energy and gravity could be signals, perhaps a message from an unknown intelligence. They developed algorithms to detect recurring sequences, to decode possible communication, and to predict patterns. But despite their efforts, the signals remained elusive, teasing humanity without offering clear answers. The boundary was like a puzzle designed to test human understanding without ever providing the final piece. The sense of being watched, of being contained, had subtle consequences for human decision-making. Explorers approached missions with more caution, weighing every choice carefully. The thought of crossing the boundary without authorization was tempting, but the potential consequences were unknown and potentially catastrophic. Commands emphasized discipline, yet curiosity never faded. Humans had built their civilization on exploration and discovery. The boundary could challenge them, delay them, or frustrate them, but it could not extinguish their desire to know. Even as humans maintained caution, they began to question the morality of the restrictions. Was it fair for humanity to be contained without explanation? Did advanced civilizations have the right to impose limits on a younger species? Ethical debates arose among scholars, diplomats, and explorers alike. Some argued that humans had not yet earned the right to venture beyond, while others believed that curiosity was an inherent part of being human, and that the species would eventually challenge any limit imposed upon them. Amid these debates, the scientists and explorers developed a deeper understanding of themselves. They realized that the boundary was not only a test of knowledge, but also a measure of patience, discipline, and collaboration. Human progress had always relied on cooperation, ingenuity, and careful observation. The boundary reinforced these values, showing that rushing blindly into the unknown could have consequences far beyond human comprehension. Even as frustration grew, there were moments of wonder. Ships approaching the edge witnessed stunning phenomena, stars that shimmered in unexpected colors, nebulae that stretched like rivers of light, and cosmic structures that seemed to defy geometry. It was as if the universe itself was both showing and hiding its beauty, allowing humans glimpses of a realm that was always just out of reach. These moments reminded the explorers why they had chosen this path, why curiosity mattered, and why the human drive to discover was stronger than fear. The combination of mystery, beauty, and restraint shaped the culture aboard exploration vessels. Scientists documented their observations meticulously, creating detailed records for future generations. Pilots and navigators shared stories of strange lights, sensor anomalies, and inexplicable patterns in space. Engineers experimented with new technologies to extend human detection capabilities, always aware that the boundary pushed their machines to the limit. Every crew member understood that they were part of a unique moment in history, witnessing the edge of human space and confronting questions that might never be answered. Meanwhile, human colonies grew more sophisticated, sending their own surveys and probes closer to the boundary. The data collected was integrated with observations from the Odyssey Explorer, building a richer picture of the phenomena at the edge of known space. Patterns emerged, but they offered more questions than answers. Every discovery seemed to hint at intelligence, design, or purpose, yet the underlying reason remained a mystery. Despite the uncertainty, humans remained resolute. The boundary had not dampened their curiosity, it had intensified it. Scientists, explorers, and scholars were united by a shared sense of purpose: to understand, to observe, and to prepare for the moment when humanity might finally cross the edge. They knew the journey would be long, filled with challenges and possibly danger, but they also knew that curiosity was a defining trait of their species. In the end, the boundary became a symbol of human resilience, intelligence, and ambition. It was a reminder of what humans had achieved and what they might achieve in the future. The unknown beyond human space was vast, mysterious, and potentially dangerous, but it was also a canvas for exploration, imagination, and hope. Humanity could not see beyond it, could not yet understand it, but the desire to know. The boundary at the edge of human space had become the subject of both fascination and fear. Scientists, explorers, and even military officials knew that it was not just a line on a map, but something far more significant, something that defied understanding. Yet the human drive to explore was too strong to ignore. Curiosity had always been humanity's greatest strength, and now it pushed them to attempt something no one had done before, to reach beyond the edge and see what lay in the unknown. Plans for a covert mission began quietly. It was not a public venture, nor was it fully approved by every authority. Only a select group of scientists, engineers, and navigators were informed, chosen for their expertise and discretion. The mission was simple in concept but dangerous in execution. Send a probe, small and fast, equipped with the most advanced sensors and recording devices humanity had ever built, to cross the boundary and transmit whatever it could back to human space. The launch was meticulous. Every system was tested multiple times, every trajectory calculated with extreme precision. The crew aboard the observation vessel monitored the probe as it accelerated toward the edge. As it approached the boundary, the instruments began to behave strangely. Energy readings fluctuated wildly. Gravity sensors spun inconsistently and communication signals grew distorted. For a moment it seemed as though the probe had entered a region where the very laws of physics were altered. Despite the anomalies, the probe continued its journey. For hours it sent back data, each transmission more difficult to interpret than the last. Images appeared fragmented, sometimes showing patterns that resembled stars but then shifting into shapes that defied geometry. Sensor readings suggested energy sources moving in ways that could not exist according to known laws. Every signal hinted at intelligence, design, or purpose, yet nothing could be confirmed. The unknown beyond human space was not empty. It was alive in some way, responding, reacting, and perhaps even observing. The scientists and engineers monitoring the probe worked tirelessly. They adjusted frequencies, recalibrated instruments, and tried every known method to maintain communication. Some argued for pulling the probe back to prevent total loss, while others insisted that every second of data was invaluable. The decision was tense and uncertain, with each choice carrying potential consequences. Then, without warning, the probe's transmission stopped. The screen went blank and all instruments showed no readings. It was as though the probe had entered a void where no signal could survive. Panic and frustration rippled through the team. Weeks of preparation, careful planning, and precise execution had ended in silence. But even in that silence, something remarkable had been revealed. The boundary was not merely a region of space. It was an active presence, something that resisted observation, something that controlled what humans could see and understand. The failure of the probe did not discourage humanity. It only increased determination. Engineers redesigned the probe, incorporating more advanced shielding, redundant communication systems, and enhanced sensors. Each iteration pushed the limits of human technology, forcing inventors to create tools that had never existed before. The mission became a symbol of human resilience, ingenuity, and determination. Failure was not the end. It was a lesson, a challenge, and an opportunity to understand more deeply the unknown. Meanwhile, aboard other exploration vessels, crews began to notice subtle but undeniable changes in their instruments when approaching the boundary. Navigation systems hesitated, energy detectors fluctuated unpredictably, and communication arrays sometimes picked up faint, indecipherable signals. Each anomaly reinforced the idea that the unknown region was not passive. Something was there, something that humans could not yet comprehend, something that had the ability to influence reality as they understood it. The psychological impact on the crew was significant. Some explorers reported feelings of awe, as though they were in the presence of something vast and intelligent. Others described unease, moments when the emptiness of the unknown seemed to press in on them, a weight that could not be measured or explained. There were dreams, visions, and fleeting impressions that were difficult to describe, yet all seemed connected to the boundary. Humans were confronting a region that tested not only their technology, but their perception, intuition, and courage. Publicly, life in human colonies continued as usual. Most citizens were unaware of the missions at the edge of space, of the probes lost in silence, or the strange phenomena detected by instruments. Exploration was celebrated, progress was broadcast, and humanity's achievements were admired. Yet behind the scenes, a quiet revolution was taking place. Humans were reaching the limits of their knowledge, testing their courage, and challenging the idea that the universe could remain unknowable. The boundary also sparked debates among philosophers, scientists, and leaders. Was the unknown a warning, a test, or simply a region that humans were not ready to understand? Did advanced civilizations deliberately protect it? Or was it a natural phenomenon that happened to be difficult to observe? Ethical questions emerged alongside scientific curiosity. Could humans justify crossing into the unknown if there were potential dangers for themselves or for the galaxy at large? These debates shaped human thought, inspiring caution but never extinguishing curiosity. Meanwhile, engineers and scientists continued to improve their technology. New propulsion systems allowed for smoother, faster travel. Sensors became more sensitive, capable of detecting even the faintest fluctuations in energy and gravity. Communication arrays were strengthened against interference, able to transmit data even in conditions previously thought impossible. Every innovation was tested near the edge of human space, each experiment bringing humans a step closer to understanding the boundary. Amid all these efforts, some humans began to notice patterns in the anomalies. Energy fluctuations seemed to follow rhythms, signals appeared at regular intervals, and certain distortions repeated across multiple locations. These patterns suggested more than randomness. Perhaps the unknown was not chaotic but organized, controlled by forces or entities beyond human comprehension. The possibility that intelligence lay beyond the boundary fueled both hope and apprehension. The boundary also affected human society in unexpected ways. Children grew up hearing stories of the unknown edge, imagining what might exist beyond. Art, literature, and music reflected the tension between curiosity and caution. People celebrated human ingenuity while respecting the limits imposed by the universe. The unknown became a symbol of both mystery and potential, reminding humans that their place in the cosmos was significant yet fragile. Explorers aboard the Odyssey Explorer and other vessels approached missions with a sense of reverence. They measured every movement, calculated every trajectory, and observed every anomaly with care. Each experiment was documented meticulously, ensuring that knowledge gained, even if incomplete, could be shared and preserved. Human space was expanding, not just physically, but intellectually and spiritually, as people confronted questions that had no answers. Despite all the challenges, humanity's determination never wavered. Scientists, engineers, and explorers continued to push forward, motivated by the knowledge that the unknown was not an end, but a frontier. Each mission, each probe, each observation contributed to a growing understanding of the boundary. Humans were learning, adapting, and innovating, proving that curiosity and courage could thrive even in the face of the unknowable. The first failed probe became a lesson in resilience. It reminded humanity that exploration was never without risk, that failure was part of progress, and that the unknown demanded respect. Every subsequent attempt built upon this knowledge, using each setback as a guide for improvement. Humans were learning not only about the universe but about themselves, their ingenuity, perseverance, and unyielding desire to understand. In private, the scientists and explorers often reflected on what lay beyond the boundary. No one knew for certain, but the possibilities were endless. It could be a region of space governed by different physical laws, an ancient civilization observing humanity, or something entirely beyond imagination. The mystery was both a challenge and an inspiration, a reminder that human potential was limitless even when knowledge was constrained. Every day, humans approached the edge with courage, curiosity, and careful planning. Instruments were refined, calculations checked, and crews trained for scenarios they could not predict. Each mission became a balance between ambition and caution, a dance with the unknown. And though the boundary remained unbroken, humanity was learning more than ever about exploration, intelligence, and the resilience required to confront the mysteries of the universe. The unknown region beyond human space had transformed from a line on a map into a living question, one that challenged every explorer, scientist, and thinker. Humans had discovered not only the limitations of technology, but the depths of their own courage and curiosity. Each mission brought them closer to understanding, even as the boundary itself seemed to resist full comprehension. In the end, the attempts to cross the boundary reinforced a fundamental truth. Humans would never stop asking questions, never stop exploring, and never stop striving to reach farther than ever before. The unknown was no longer a threat, it was a promise. The mysteries at the edge of human space were no longer distant lines on a map. They had become a living challenge, a question that humanity could not ignore. After repeated attempts with probes and careful observation, scientists and explorers began to notice patterns in the strange phenomena. Signals flickered in ways that suggested intelligence, and energy readings seemed to pulse rhythmically, as if some presence beyond the boundary was aware of their attempts to observe it. The unknown was no longer just a void. It was something that responded, something that existed on its own terms, and humans felt both awe and unease. The first step toward understanding came during a quiet observation mission. Explorers aboard one of the advanced survey ships approached the boundary with caution, maintaining a safe distance while scanning for any anomalies. As the instruments picked up faint signals, the crew noticed that these signals were not random. They appeared in sequences, repeating in patterns too consistent to be natural. The discovery electrified the scientific team, who immediately began analyzing the data. Was it a form of communication, a message from beyond, or merely an unusual cosmic phenomenon? The possibility that intelligence existed beyond the boundary was both thrilling and terrifying. Scientists and engineers worked tirelessly to enhance the sensitivity of their instruments. Algorithms were developed to detect subtle variations in energy, light, and gravitational waves. Every new probe, every new mission, became more sophisticated, incorporating technologies that could adapt to the unpredictable conditions near the boundary. The effort was massive, coordinated across multiple colonies and research stations, reflecting humanity's relentless determination to understand what had remained hidden for so long. At the same time, the psychological impact on the crew became increasingly evident. Being so close to the unknown brought feelings that were difficult to describe. Some reported a sense of being observed, a subtle awareness that they were not alone. Others spoke of brief flashes of images in their minds, patterns, shapes, or symbols that could not exist naturally. While some dismissed these experiences as stress or fatigue, others believed they were manifestations of the boundary's influence, a reminder that this was not a region governed by familiar laws. Public awareness of the boundary was still limited, but curiosity grew among citizens. Stories circulated quietly about explorers who had glimpsed strange lights or received unusual data. Scholars debated the implications of a potential intelligent presence beyond human space, discussing what humanity should do if such intelligence existed. Ethical questions surfaced. Should humans try to communicate with it? Could such communication be dangerous? Would understanding the unknown change humanity itself? These discussions were careful, speculative, and often tense, but they reflected the deep fascination and respect humans had for the frontier. The breakthrough came when a specially designed probe managed to transmit for longer than any previous attempt. It sent images that were fragmented but suggestive, shapes that resembled structures, energy flows that hinted at organization, and patterns in the surrounding space that suggested design rather than randomness. The data was incomplete and difficult to interpret, but it provided undeniable evidence that something beyond the boundary was more than empty space. The unknown was not merely a void. It was active, structured, and perhaps even aware of humanity's presence. Excitement and caution existed side by side. The discovery raised hope that humans could someday interact with whatever existed beyond. But it also reminded them of the potential risks. Military and scientific leaders emphasized careful observation and restraint, warning that hasty action could provoke unknown consequences. Humanity's experience in space had taught them the importance of patience and caution, yet curiosity could not be stifled. The urge to explore, to understand, and to make contact grew stronger with each new piece of evidence. As preparations continued, small teams of scientists and engineers worked on simulations and models to predict how the unknown presence might respond to human activity. They tested communication patterns, signal emissions, and exploratory probes under controlled conditions, trying to anticipate the reactions they might encounter. Each experiment was recorded meticulously, not just for immediate use but to build a foundation of knowledge for future missions. Humans were learning not only about the unknown but also about how to engage with it responsibly and intelligently. Meanwhile, explorers reported new anomalies that challenged their understanding of physics. Energy fields bent in unusual ways, light moved along paths that defied geometry, and gravitational patterns shifted unexpectedly. Some anomalies seemed to react to the movement of human ships or the activation of instruments, reinforcing the idea that intelligence might be behind them. Every observation deepened the mystery and raised more questions. Was the boundary a protective measure, a communication method, or a test of humanity's capabilities? The boundary also inspired new thinking across human society. Philosophers debated the ethical implications of interacting with an unknown intelligence. Artists created works reflecting the tension between fear and fascination. Writers imagined civilizations beyond comprehension, and educators introduced concepts of caution, curiosity, and resilience in the face of the unknown. Humanity was not only exploring space but also exploring itself, learning to balance ambition with wisdom, courage with prudence. During this time, the first hints of possible communication appeared. Signals detected near the boundaries showed patterns that were repeated consistently across multiple locations and time periods. Scientists began developing algorithms to interpret these sequences, hoping to find meaning or intention. Every small success brought exhilaration, and each failure brought lessons, reinforcing humanity's persistent drive to engage with the unknown. The mission teams faced growing challenges as they pushed closer to the boundary. Instruments occasionally failed without explanation, data streams became corrupted, and crew members experienced disorientation or subtle shifts in perception. Yet each challenge was met with determination. Humans adapted, building more resilient systems and finding new ways to navigate the unpredictable environment. The unknown tested their ingenuity and patience, and humanity rose to the occasion. One night, during a long observation period, the crew aboard a survey ship witnessed a phenomenon that left them awestruck. Across the void of the boundary, a sequence of lights appeared in a pattern that seemed deliberate, almost like a visual message. The lights pulsed rhythmically, forming shapes and arrangements that suggested intelligence rather than randomness. Scientists scrambled to record and analyze the event, knowing it might be the first direct evidence of a conscious presence beyond human space. Excitement spread quietly across human colonies and research stations. The possibility of encountering intelligence beyond the boundary was no longer speculative. It was becoming real. Teams worked tirelessly to interpret the patterns, to develop methods of responding, and to anticipate what interactions might look like. Every decision was cautious, deliberate, and informed by decades of exploration experience. Humanity was learning that curiosity was not enough. Intelligence, patience, and responsibility were equally important. As the data accumulated, a consensus began to emerge among scientists and explorers. Whatever existed beyond the boundary was not hostile, at least not immediately. The patterns, rhythms, and structures observed suggested observation and organization, but not aggression. The unknown presence seemed to be aware of humans but did not actively interfere with their work beyond subtle anomalies. This cautious optimism inspired hope that one day, communication or understanding might be possible. Still, the mystery remained immense. Every new observation raised more questions than answers. How intelligent was the presence? What were its goals or intentions? Was it a civilization, an artificial construct, or a natural phenomenon beyond comprehension? Humans did not know, and the lack of certainty only fueled further exploration. The unknown was both a challenge and an inspiration, demanding patience, creativity, and respect. Despite the uncertainties, humanity's determination continued to grow. New probes were designed, new missions planned, and new technologies developed to extend reach and understanding. Each mission brought humans closer to the unknown, providing insights that were incomplete but invaluable. Failure was part of the process, but so was learning, adapting, and improving. Humanity's resilience, ingenuity, and curiosity were proving to be as limitless as space itself. The presence beyond the boundary had become more than a scientific question. It was a reflection of humanity's own spirit. Explorers, scientists, and thinkers realized that confronting the unknown required courage, collaboration, and humility. It was a test not only of technology but of character. Humanity was learning to face mysteries without fear, to balance curiosity with caution, and to recognize that some answers would require patience measured in decades, if not centuries. In private discussions, the crews often wondered what lay beyond the next step. The patterns of light, energy, and gravity suggested intelligence, yet the motives and nature of this presence were still hidden. Scientists debated whether to attempt communication, to wait for further signs, or to continue observation alone. Humanity had come far, Decades of exploration, observation, and experimentation had brought humans to the edge of the unknown. The boundary at the edge of mapped space was no longer just a line on a chart. It had become a symbol of curiosity, perseverance, and the drive to understand what lay beyond. Scientists, explorers, and engineers had learned to interpret patterns, anticipate anomalies, and respect the vastness that waited beyond. Yet, despite every preparation, every probe, and every calculation, the unknown remained a challenge, intelligent, mysterious, and untouchable. The turning point came quietly, almost unexpectedly. A new mission was launched with a different approach. Instead of sending an unmanned probe alone, the mission combined human observation with autonomous drones and advanced sensors, all coordinated to collect maximum information while minimizing risk. The crew aboard the observation vessel approached the boundary with a mixture of awe, tension, and anticipation. Every instrument was calibrated, every system tested, and every calculation verified. This time, they were determined to learn more than they ever had before. As the mission neared the boundary, subtle changes in the environment became more pronounced. The instruments detected energy patterns that shifted in response to their movements. Gravity distortions pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat, and faint electromagnetic signals repeated in sequences that suggested deliberate design. The crew could feel, almost instinctively, that they were on the verge of something significant. It was not just data they were collecting. It was the first real sense of presence, of something beyond human understanding responding to their attempts to observe and explore. For days, the observation team worked tirelessly. Every anomaly was recorded, every signal analyzed, and every pattern carefully interpreted. Algorithms processed the streams of data, searching for order in the apparent chaos. The results were astonishing. Some energy fluctuations matched mathematical sequences known only to advanced civilizations, suggesting intelligence and awareness. Patterns of light and radiation appeared coordinated, almost like a message being constructed across space itself. Humanity was not just observing the unknown. It was being observed in return. The implications were profound. Humans were no longer alone at the edge of space in the sense of being the only sentient intelligence present. Whatever existed beyond the boundary was capable of interaction, even if subtle and indirect. The discovery sparked a mixture of exhilaration, curiosity, and caution among the crew. They realized that any attempt to communicate would need to be carefully considered, measured, and respectful. A misstep could be catastrophic, but a thoughtful approach could open a door to understanding that humans had only dreamed of. Scientists and engineers worked together to devise a system of signals designed to test responses. Light pulses, energy emissions, and carefully modulated gravitational signals were sent in controlled sequences, each designed to observe whether the unknown presence would react. For hours, the team watched and waited, analyzing fluctuations in readings, sudden changes in energy, and variations in gravitational fields. The boundary, long perceived as a static limit, had become dynamic, interactive, and alive with potential. Then, a response came. Subtle at first, a faint rhythmic modulation in energy readings, a sequence of pulses that matched patterns sent by the humans. It was not loud, not overwhelming, but it was unmistakable. The unknown was acknowledging humanity's presence. The reaction sent waves of excitement and tension through the crew. This was the first clear evidence that the boundary was not simply a barrier, but a form of interaction. A conversation conducted through phenomena humans could now begin to interpret. The crew immediately adjusted their approach, sending a new sequence of carefully measured signals in response. The readings shifted again, as if the unknown presence was considering the communication. Patterns became more complex, synchronized with human emissions, suggesting understanding and adaptation. Humanity was no longer merely observing. It was participating. It was as if the universe itself had found a way to speak in a language humans were only just beginning to understand. Word of the breakthrough spread cautiously among scientific and exploratory communities. The implications were staggering. Humans had approached the edge of their known space and found evidence of intelligence beyond their own species. The boundary, once a symbol of limitation and mystery, was now a bridge to something larger, a network of understanding that could reshape humanity's place in the galaxy. Yet with the excitement came responsibility. Every step forward had to be deliberate, measured and respectful because the unknown remained beyond control. Back on the observation vessel, the crew worked around the clock. They mapped the patterns of response, tested variations in signals, and monitored reactions to every emission. Each interaction, each adjustment revealed more about the presence beyond. It was intelligent, methodical, and observant, yet it remained enigmatic. Humans could perceive its patterns and predict some reactions, but the larger purpose, the ultimate intention, remained a mystery. It was a reminder that intelligence did not mean predictability, and understanding did not mean ownership. As the days passed, a tentative dialogue began to take shape. Humans sent sequences of energy pulses representing basic mathematical concepts, geometric patterns, and simple relational structures. In response, the unknown presence adjusted energy fields, light sequences, and gravitational fluctuations in ways that corresponded to the patterns. The interaction was primitive by human standards, yet profound in meaning. For the first time, humanity experienced the sense of communication with an entity beyond the stars, a consciousness entirely unlike any known species, yet responsive and aware. The breakthrough changed human perspective. The boundary was no longer just a limit. It was a mirror reflecting humanity's ingenuity, patience, and courage. It demonstrated that humans could reach beyond fear, uncertainty, and limitation to interact with something far greater than themselves. Exploration had become not only a physical journey but an intellectual and spiritual one. Humans were learning to approach the unknown not with recklessness but with respect, observation, and humility. Amid the excitement, caution remained. Scientists reminded the crews that the unknown presence was still mysterious, communication was delicate, and any aggressive or poorly considered action could provoke a response humans could not manage. Military and diplomatic leaders emphasized restraint, highlighting that while discovery was important, the lessons of history and the fragility of life demanded prudence. Humans were making progress, but they were still at the very beginning of understanding what lay beyond the boundary. The cultural impact was immediate and deep. Artists and writers drew inspiration from the first confirmed responses, creating works that depicted the dialogue between humanity and the unknown. Philosophers discussed the ethical implications of interaction with intelligence beyond comprehension. Educators introduced the concept of patience, humility, and observation in the face of the extraordinary. The boundary had transformed from a source of fear into a symbol of possibility, a reminder that the universe contained both mystery and opportunity. Explorers continued their work, launching additional probes and sending refined sequences of signals. Each mission built upon the knowledge of previous ones, increasing understanding and refining methods of interaction. Data analysis teams decoded patterns, discovering consistencies and variations that hinted at reasoning, adaptability, and perhaps curiosity on the part of the unknown presence. Humanity was learning, step by step, how to engage responsibly with intelligence far beyond their own experience. The sense of wonder among humans grew. Children imagined conversations across the stars, adults contemplated the meaning of intelligence beyond themselves, and scientists prepared for the moment when understanding could become deeper, more complex, and more interactive. The unknown presence had become more than a mystery. It had become a partner in observation, a test of ingenuity, and a window into the vastness of consciousness itself. Even as the dialogue continued, humans remained humble. They recognized the vastness of the unknown, the limitations of their understanding, and the importance of careful progress. Communication was slow, imperfect, and sometimes frustratingly opaque. Yet it demonstrated something remarkable. Humans were capable of interacting with intelligence far greater than themselves without fear, aggression, or reckless ambition. Humanity was learning the most important lesson of all. Respect for the unknown was as crucial as the drive to explore it. In the final analysis, the boundary that had once been a source of fear and frustration had become a source of hope and inspiration. It showed humans the power of persistence, ingenuity, and collaboration. It reminded them that exploration was not just about reaching new places, but about understanding and engaging with the larger universe. Humans had faced limitations, adapted, and found a way to interact with what was previously unknowable. The edge of human space had become a frontier not of fear, but of dialogue, discovery, and connection. Humanity had not only approached the unknown, It had reached a new level of understanding. The boundary was no longer simply a line. It was a bridge, a teacher, and a mirror reflecting the best qualities of humanity.